The Big Ten championship game is interesting because it features a team that we all expected to be here, but it also features a team that we did not. Penn State was a team that thought they could make it to the Big Ten championship, and there was definitely a chance that they could, but I don't think many people had them going to the Big Ten championship. I think a lot of people expected Ohio State, a lot of people expected maybe Michigan, but Penn State kind of sneaking in the back door with Ohio State's loss to Michigan, which is kind of a weird thing to say that neither of them made the championship. Penn State sneaking in was very interesting. Oregon obviously is the other team. We kind of expected them to compete in the Big Ten right off the bat. Dan Lanning's squad has been playing really well this year, undefeated coming into this game, and they are facing a Penn State team that is going to give them plenty of challenges. This will be one of their toughest tests of the year, but Oregon also has obviously plenty of talent as well. It's going to be fun to see which one of these teams can come out with the win, which team is going to be the winner of the Big Ten championship, and what that means for the college football playoff. I think that if Oregon wins this game, that's about what you expected. Not much changes. Where things could get crazy is if Penn State finds a way to win this game. That would make things a little bit different in terms of seeding and whatnot, but still a very fun matchup between these two teams. The big questions for each side is for Penn State, it's going to be, can you stay disciplined? This is an Oregon offense that does a lot of things that are off balance. They present with a lot of different looks. They do a lot of different shifting motions. Will Stein does a lot of really good things. He's one of the best play callers in college football. He is going to test this Penn State defense because Penn State has a ton of athletes on this defense. They are a really good group and they're really fun to watch. But the one thing that Oregon does really well is they give you different looks that maybe you're not ready for. They try to get off balance. They try to get you out of position. They out leverage you with their pre-snap motions, their pre-snap adjustments, their alignments. There's different things that Oregon does that makes life very difficult for any defense that they're facing. And we've seen a number of teams struggle to slow down the Oregon Ducks. Penn State is the next team that gets a chance to potentially slow them down, and how that defense performs will say a lot about the outcome of this game. For Oregon is going to be, how do you make Drew Aller beat you? Now, Drew Aller is a really talented quarterback for Penn State. He has the arm talent to make some pretty ridiculous throws. And at times we've seen that this year, but also at times we've seen him struggle. We have seen him at times look like he doesn't really know what's going on. But fortunately for Penn State, the number of times that's happened has been far less than the number of times it hasn't. And he's been a really fun quarterback to watch. But the one thing Oregon is going to try to do is be disruptive and force him to beat them. Force them to beat him with his arm and force Penn State essentially to try to throw the ball maybe a little bit more than they run the football. Penn State's a very good rushing offense, and they rely on their running backs to make plays, and for good reason. The matchup I'm very curious to watch is going to be Penn State's offensive line against Oregon's defensive line. Oregon brought in a number of transfers from the transfer portal this year, and they have paid huge dividends. Now, Jordan Burch is obviously the name people will talk about. Same with Derek Harmon. Those are two guys that have stepped up in a big way. You also have guys like Jamari Caldwell that have stepped up coming from Houston. A guy that has been here, though, Mateo Uiagalelei. When Jordan Burch went down with injuries multiple times this year, Uiagalelei was the guy who stepped up in a big way. His performance in this game could have a huge impact on the outcome of this game. And it's going to be a close game, I think. Oregon is a 3.5-point favorite as the time I am recording this. And it's going to be fun to see how this actually shakes out. Is Oregon going to pull away with this like I think some people expect them to? Or is this going to be a back and forth battle, which would be incredibly entertaining? Because I think in the years past, we've seen some blowouts in the Big Ten championship, so it would be nice to see a competitive game for once in this Big Ten championship. The impact players for Oregon, it shouldn't be any surprises here. Dylan Gabriel has been a great addition, and Dylan Gabriel is someone who's been in the Heisman conversation from the preseason to the postseason here. He is the steadying force of this offense. He can make some big-time throws, but overall, he was brought in to make the right play. For the most part, he makes the right play. He makes the smart decision, gets the ball to his playmakers, and lets Will Stein's play calling kind of do the work, and he is just the guy who's orchestrating the entire execution of that play. He is really fun to watch, has a really pretty deep ball, so he can sling it deep downfield, and he has plenty of playmakers to utilize. Joining him in the backfield, Jordan James has been an incredibly underrated running back, someone who doesn't get a ton of love from the national media, and someone who's kind of flown under the radar because Oregon as a team has been that good. And I think that's okay, though. That's what Dan Lanning wants. He wants his team to be really good. He wants his players to work together. So you're not going to get a ton of recognition outside of, Dylan Gabriel, a couple of the other guys that we talked about before. The wide receivers are really fun to watch. Same with the tight end. Terrence Ferguson has been one of the best tight ends Oregon's had in its program's history. Tez Johnson is a speedster that can make plays happen. Evan Stewart has had his moments as well. They've had plenty of big-time players step up when they need them, and they're going to need them to do that in this game as well. So that's something to keep an eye on there. We talked about Derek Harmon before. He is a guy who has been an absolute monster at times for Oregon. The defense, I think, doesn't get enough credit for what it has done for Oregon this year. The offense obviously is very successful, but the defense has done a lot of really exciting things too. They've been very disruptive. That defensive line deserves a ton of credit for the success that they've had. On top, the linebackers and the defensive backs have been good as well, but it's that defensive line that has really stepped up in a big way. The impact players for Penn State, we always talked about Drew Aller and what he can do. He is the biggest X factor in this game for either team. His performance dictates if Penn State can hang with Oregon. And I would say that Penn State's defense has the ability to slow down Oregon's offense and keep Penn State in this game. We have seen them do that throughout this year, but the offense is going to have to get something going. Drew Aller is going to have to find ways to get his guys open, or if Andy Koltnicki, another really good play caller, this is one of the underrated things about this matchup, is you get Andy Koltnicki and you get Will Stein calling these offenses. That's going to be really fun to watch, all the different formations they're going to run. They try to get off balance, put strings to formations in places that you haven't seen before. That's going to be really fun to watch. Drew Aller has to step up in a big way because Katron Allen and Nick Singleton have done a really good job for Penn State all year, and we've seen them do that in a consistent basis when they've been healthy. But Drew Aller is the guy that has consistently been the X factor, and this is not going to change for the rest of the season. He has to show that he's a capable player of making things happen for this offense and balancing that offense as well. The defense is going to have their hands full for Oregon with Tyler Warren. That's another thing to keep an eye on. The versatile weapon has done everything for Penn State. How do they utilize him? The defense, like I said, for Penn State is going to have their hands full. Abdul Carter, I'm very excited to watch him go against Oregon's offensive line. It's a very good Oregon offensive line, and I think that Penn State has a number of big-time playmakers that will give Oregon a tough time. This is a really good Penn State defense, like I said, and it's going to be fun to see how they step up to this challenge. Now, the winner of this game, it feels like it's going to be Oregon. That's just how things have been playing out. But again, this has been a weird year of college football. I'm not saying that I'm predicting a Penn State upset, but I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. This has been a really strange year. A lot of things have happened that we didn't really expect, and that's been really fun. If we can add some more drama to the rest of the postseason, that only makes this an even better season. It's going to be a fun matchup to watch. Both these teams have a ton of talent, and like I said before, for once in what seems like a long, long time, we're going to see a really competitive Big Ten championship.